Everybody, welcome to our October University Center seminar. We have Susan Cornelius with us, who is one of our University Center mentors. She works mainly with UNM Valencia, and she also has open office hours for any students or community members who are looking for some mentoring regarding their entrepreneurial pursuits. Today, she will be giving us a presentation on customer discovery and how to carry it out in a virtual world. So I'll turn it over to Susan. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself as we go. This is an interactive virtual seminar.
Good morning, everybody. We've got about an hour and we have a lot of things to go through. A couple of ground rules about all of this. If your dog starts barking or your children need your attention or the phone rings, that's fine. That just happens during Zoom. You don't have to sit there and apologize. Just keep on smiling and maybe mute your microphone and take care of it, okay? As many of you as we can see your faces as possible, we'd love to have that because it helps us understand whether or not you're thinking about things and we need to call on you, or whether or not you're actually following us. So we would love to see your faces if we can. Don't worry about your backgrounds, I'm not judging that. This particular presentation is a presentation that I've done for what's called iCore. Now, many of you are members of the community. Some of you, what the heck, it's changing on its own. It's got a life of its own. Okay, make sure I'm not touching anything. Many of you are members of the community, and what we want to turn you to are events and things that happen. It's doing it again. It's doing it on its own, Cecilia. I'm not touching anything. So, all right, so let me just get through this slide. It seems to want to start there. See, this is one of the things that happens with Zoom. No matter how many times you work on it and you know what you're doing, it does its thing. Hi, I'm Susan Cornelius. I'm principal and founder of my own company. It's called Accelerate to Solutions. I am a startup entrepreneur. I have probably since 2000, if I go back to 1993 with the University of California, San Diego Health System, I've been the part of about $1 billion in startups. I have worked with about 500 of them myself, and I've worked intensely with about 70 of them. And right now I am a full-time, almost volunteer mentor for the University of New Mexico Rainforest Innovations Program. That is for students, postdocs, and professors, but they do offer public programs. And hopefully after today, when I give you some links, you'll go to those links and you'll participate in many of our virtual programs. Well, I want to say welcome, founders, to all of you. You've all got an idea of some sort or another, and or you've been in business. You're welcome, Eve. We're glad to have you with us. Many of us have had experiences in starting up biotech, high tech, soft tech, and biopharma companies. In my particular case, I'm one of a whole group of mentors that have done every business you can think of. We want to point out to you, there's a collection of presentations at loborainforest.com/New Mexico Rainforest /videos. Any course that we've presented virtually is there. You'll see me in a couple of them. You'll see some of the other mentors presenting. You'll see some high-tech entrepreneurs. You'll see the chair of the New Mexico Tech Angels, and you'll see several venture capitalists who are from other investment firms. So we've all done presentations. They've all been recorded. You can continue to expand your exploration by doing this. You can also join us on Wednesday of next week by communicating with Cecilia. We're going to be doing half-hour mentoring sessions. We start at 10 o'clock with something we call boot camp, which is an idea I'll follow up on in your interviews. And then we have 30-minute interviews, and it's all about you. It's not about me. I'm not speaking other than to ask you questions and or give you little pieces of ideas that you can use for what it is that you're doing. So that's on the 21st, Cecilia? And it starts at 10 a.m. All right, so we've all been through the same period of time together, COVID. And who would have thought I'd be doing all my work on Google Meeting, Zoom, Microsoft Team? The answer is yes, I would have thought that because I was already doing it. So all that stuff I told you, I was doing successfully by using electronic communications with clients. all over the country with us looking at one another's faces, all right? Also, and by pouring our energy into it, we're not going to do the work for you. We're going to give you some ideas. The thing of it is even though today's times are different, the principles that we're using do not change. So we're going to talk about throughout the presentation, so stay to the end, how you work with virtual media, social media in order to be success. And in case you're wondering, we've had a lot of success during this period of time. So ask me questions as we go through, okay? Why is, there's something wrong with this particular presentation. Your journey, the journey you're on trying to become an entrepreneur when you first do it is scary, but then think of somebody like me who since 1990 has worked with over 500 companies. That first company is scary. And I've often said to people, what if the job you work at is one you create for yourself? And what if it's not the only job you create for yourself? What if it's another company that follows that? In my case, there's been 7 companies that were my own. Preceding that, there were all these other ones. So what we're trying to do is kind of eliminate waste in your discovery process of how you make this work. I was really pleased. I got a proposal from a young company last night. It was all about setting up food trucks that have a particular approach to cooking food and are going to involve some technology. You're going to laugh. It's my oldest grandson. So he went through this whole program at Texas State University. What made me laugh and very, very happy is they're doing the same approach we are doing. So between UCSD, Rady School of Business, Washington School of Business, Washington University School of Business, MIT, Harvard, we are all using pretty much the same approach with working with small startups because we know that it works. So I welcome you to some good ideas today. So today's markets, what's going on? We have the biggest thing we can see right now, and I'm going to use some words that maybe don't make any sense. If you hear them, would you ask me, what do they mean? Most companies that are doing well today have 1 to 3 founders. So if you don't have a partner in your idea, it's a good idea to do it. They have a larger appetite, so dream big, and they're focused on bigger ideas. The successful companies are the ones that go beyond themselves, and Dr. Tkach has a class that he teaches on this subject at UNM Valencia, so I will welcome you to join it because I know that everybody gets a lot out of that class. There he is waving. It's all about finding out who you are, because the very first thing you're selling, whether you like it or not, is yourself. Now, I'm not talking in a negative way, I'm talking in a very positive way. And who you are and how you approach problem solving and how you approach what it is you're doing is what a lot gets invested in. There's a crunch right now in money, but it's not due to a lack of money. Venture capital guys and angel guys, and there's a difference. Angel guys come in at the beginning, that's what I am. Venture capital guys come in when you've started to have some traction with selling product. They're going back to the companies they helped start up, and they're working with them right now to try to shore them out. They're doing what are called bridge deals. And that means they have to go back to all the investors and say, we're going to have to wait 16, 18 months to figure out this market. We're going to put in some extra money in this company. You can too, but we're not going to be doing the payoffs. And the investors have to be willing to agree to that. And since nobody wants to lose their money, I'd say probably 95% of them are saying yes. Pre-seed investments are real low right now. They're kind of sleeping. What's pre-seed? That's probably where most of you are right now with your idea. They're kind of sleeping. They were really up in 2019. Not the number of deals, but that's dollar size of the deals. We were used to seeing 250,000 to begin with to about 1.3 million. What we started seeing was 2.5 million. We're in a state of shock. Even the government was giving grants at 1.75 million. So again, angels are kind of shoring up their investments, working with the companies they have. We're looking at winter 2021 to see some changes. We don't know what the trends are going to be, because if you've been following the market, it looks like this. What does the market have to do with you starting up your company? It has to do with the amount of dollars and the kinds of deals that are being made. But I got news for you. If we're slowing down a little bit and getting more time to get things done, because now we have a bridge loan, who doesn't need more time to get their product to market? So it's not exactly bad for startups, okay? Last semester at UNM, we launched probably 15 startups. So don't be thinking this is a bad deal that's going on right now. Not for you. This is going to give you some time to pull together what you need to do. Coupled with the current state of things, however, it means you need to be in the top 5 to 7% of the companies seeking funding to start up a company. and there are loans being given. You can talk with the SBA, Small Business Administration, SBDC at UNM Valencia or at UNM Los Alamos or at UNM main campus or at UNM Taos. And they are seeing bankers being willing to loan money. They're being a little more, shall we say, strong about what they want to see you having ready. And we'll talk about that during the course of this, just like we're going to talk about how to do interviews using Zoom and all the other electronic media. And just like we're going to talk to how do you pull in data when you talk to customers with the apps that are out there right now. Okay, so like I said, this hasn't been a cushy 10 months. Again, we're looking to sometime fall 2021 before we see things start to shake out. And what we know is that investors have taken big hits to their portfolios. The raising the bar point is really interesting. They want to see your prototype. They want to see your business model. They want to see that you've made some traction and you're ready to start showing off something that you can get feedback on, not just conceptual, okay? So that's the part that's changed. You'll see the words there, pre-A, A, B, and sometimes C. Pre-A means simply that you are at proof of concept. You've built some things, but you haven't actually launched them yet. You may have, like if you have a restaurant, you've been trying out recipes, inviting people in to taste them in your backyard and that sort of thing. A means you actually have product, okay? And they can invest in product and they can invest in sales and revenues. What are they asking in return? They're asking that we lower our valuations. That means overall, if we say by these 3 months or by this 6 months, or by this 9 months or by this 12 months, we're gonna be worth the following, they're asking us to lower that. When you do that, it's a bit problematic because you need to offer that to all your investors. Is it actually a good time to invest? Yes, getting more for the dollar, number one. And smart companies have made good investments. What do I mean by smart? Sometimes the founders are taking on consulting work and doing work for other people and pouring that money into the company. Sometimes they're taking cuts in salaries. Other times they are interacting with other teams of people to share resources. And the one thing they all have in common is their excitement about what they're doing hasn't gone away. My excitement hasn't gone away. Am I probably excited when I sleep? I would think so. But it's just this whole attitude that this really is a neat market to start up. Now, those of you that are thinking about doing nonprofits, this impacts you too. So don't be thinking that just because you're a nonprofit, the path that you're on is different, because it is not. So this is something that we have some videos on at that link. Cecilia, you're gonna put this presentation up sometime tomorrow morning, correct? Yeah, you'll be able to go back and look at it. But the business model canvas itself is something that we've got some lectures on, and you can actually look it up. This model came to us from a group of researchers, one in the UK and one in Norway, who said, you know what, you guys out there that are doing this is what you're doing. And I looked at it and went, yeah, that's what I'm doing. But this isn't in order. It doesn't read from left to right. Let's look in the middle. Those of you that have heard me do presentations before have heard this, and it doesn't hurt to get a wee bit of a reminder. You can go online and look up what is a business model canvas. That's what this is. We refer to it as a BMC. We have replaced the massive business plans that have been done in the past and said a startup needs to get traction right away within 9 months. They got to have some design of their product done, and they have to be able to talk to customers and say, okay, I'm selling my candles. They're better than everybody else's, and this is why, okay? So we need to be able to do some things. Number one, it's in the middle, value proposition. This is where you tell all of us what the value is of what you're doing. In other words, I have come up with a new generation gene-based therapy for children with brain cancer that interferes in the replication of the DNA in the brain that we don't want, and instead strengthens the brain to resist such things as brain tumors. To do this, they have to take a medication once a day. We've gone through our rat trials, it works. I'm gonna go back to that again. I seem to have this on some kind of an automatic thing where it's changing. Okay, this is one thing you don't want to do in your presentations, is that's have a problem with the timing and the sequencing. So this is a counter example. Customer relationships, who do you want to talk to for your interviews? You're looking at me going, interviews? Yes, you need to talk to potential customers and find out what they think about what you want to do. Because at this point, if you haven't talked to at least 100 people, you're working on assumptions. And investors, yourself, and the people who want to have confidence in you want to know how you know that this is going to work. Channels, this is channels and partners. Who's going to introduce you to people for interviews? Who's going to work with you, maybe even invest in what you're doing? The rest of it, key activities, once you've got all this defined, key activities is all about what you need to do next to launch your product technically, what you need to launch your product commercially. So don't let the size of the box fool you, because it's actually more information than the others. Key partners, now you've talked to people and people are willing to help you. It could be a family member that wants to be on your board. It could be an old teacher who has an idea for you. It could be anybody. So don't ever think it just has to be business people steeped in what you're doing. Key resources. If you're going to have a food truck, you got to have a truck. And if you're going to have a food truck, you got to have people. And if you're going to have a food truck, you got to have food. So it's those kinds of things. And in my case of the tech companies, it's fabricators, it's designers, it's software engineers, it's people who have the skill to help me get all the different parts of my product ready. Cost structure. There is a site that I'll turn you to at the end here. There's a couple of gentlemen from the UK who have put together a wonderful website that lets you read through what should my business model be? How am I going to sell? How am I going to raise money? What am I going to do? And it takes a look at both profits and nonprofits and say, you could choose to do this. You could become an LLC, license your stuff out. It'll get manufactured and sold by others. Or you could keep control of the first initial product, and you get paid for each iteration that you do inside your LLC, and you'll get paid for the improvements. Revenue streams, this matches up with your customer segments. Who's going to pay for what you're doing, and how do you know? If you've got any questions, I'd like you to look on the website for Business Model Canvas. So I've talked about these customer service interviews, and I'm looking at you and I'm saying, oh my goodness, you've got to do this. And you're going, okay, I think I've done some of that already. Well, when we work with people through the National Science Foundation, ICOR, we're looking for 100 interviews. When we're looking for people who are at the launching stage, we're looking for close to 400. So this is about creating a relationship with somebody who's going to stay with you. Olden days, people didn't do that. They hired marketing people, and they gave out pens and pencils, and they handed out flyers, and they did shows and things like that. You may still do that at some point, but this is a relationship with a group of people who are going to be so excited about what you're doing because you've got them excited during the interview, and you did not sell them. Keep that in mind, you're not selling during the interview. You asked them questions, you relied on their expertise, you wrote it down, you were honest with yourself about it. Their minds may not be focused on their strategy right now because of COVID, and they're trying to keep things together, but they don't know about you. And if you tell them what you're doing, I will tell you 75 to 85% of the time, they will talk to you and give you feedback. So you're going to research your potential customer. Everybody always starts out with the industry. I want restaurateurs. I want people in metrology. I want nuclear engineers. And I sit there and go, nope. To start, we need to find out what specifically within that industry. Are you talking to manufacturers? You talking to operators? You talking to designers? You talking to fabricators? You talking to materials people? Because you got to have the materials to build it. What already exists, what are you going to have to create? And how are you going to have to shape it for your customer? But how do you know? And you don't know that unless you talk to them. One of the most important parts of all of this is sharing your value proposition. Let's go to the next slide. So what's a value proposition? And Stephen, you help me with this. What you say a value prop is. Got to put on your sound.
Oh, sorry. In general, when I talk to my students about what a value proposition, just really saying, what is it that makes it somewhat different than what's out there and what's existing? Again, what type of need are you meeting for people? What kind of fear are you alleviating, or what kind of want are you feeling that they don't have yet? And again, it's kind of the edge that says, well, I'm already comfortable over here with product X. Why would I move on over? Like, there has to be some adoption hurdles there for the existing market, where if they have to take all of this luggage, this baggage, they're already so used to CD players. They're already so used to their tape deck. They're already so used to this and that, and not having high-speed internet. Well, Why would I move to a streaming type service? I mean, currently right now I'm here at my grandfather's house doing some work with the family business. You can see all the pictures of us on the wall behind there. But again, it's like just recently for him, you know, it was going from, you know, VCRs and tapes to DVDs, and then all of a sudden to Blu-rays and all of this. But again, the value proposition and mixed in with maybe the production life cycle, right? All these things, they all interrelate, but really in a sum of it, it's just what's that distinctive things that make your product, your service different than what's already being offered, and what truly can you meet for that customer or that segment or whatever it is that you happen to be targeting.
Thank you. Any questions about what Dr. Takich said? I'm going to get it right. I've known you for how long? What Dr. Takich said. Has anybody else got any questions or thoughts on that?
I actually have one of my students on the call here, Susan.
Can you call on your student?
No. She said she's currently babysitting, but she wanted to drop in. So I'm not sure if the baby is sleeping that she's babysitting, but she did say toward the end of the call, if there's some time, she might talk about her project that she's been working on this semester. So.
Okay, good. So the first thing is, what problem are we solving? That's what a value prop is. So I'm going to give you a wee bit of a pitch that I've used before in the past. Have you ever wondered how startups occur? How are they created? What makes them successful? Well, what we know is that they need to have some mentors along the way. And we are using a mentor-driven model with many, many different startups. We've got tons of longitudinal research, about 30 years right now, that tells us when they have somebody who's been through this before, whether it's somebody like me, somebody who's actually active CEO of a company right now, somebody who's a professor at a university, somebody who's running their own business, they do a lot better in terms of their outcomes and getting to launch and getting to start creating revenues. That's a value prop. It's a pitch and a value prop. So it's all about the problem we're solving, for whom, people who are starting up companies. The customer segment, people who are starting up companies. What is the unique value prop? Well, it's mentoring and how that leads to success. And what bundles of products and services are we offering? I didn't put that in there. What are your value props is what I'm asking you, with an emphasis on the S, because depending upon whether I'm working with a university like I am now, University of New Mexico, or I'm coaching the actual mentors themselves, which is what I do as well, there's a different value prop for each one of those customers of what it is that I do. So if I've designed a metrology device that takes a look at surfaces at a nanoscale level to determine whether or not there are any defects in roll-to-roll solar panels, I have to say what's in it for the manufacturer, what's in it for the solar production field, and what's in it for the people who are trading in solar futures. That's interesting, isn't it? So you're going to sit down and you're going to do the market segments many, many times. What is your value prop? And I'd like you to write this down. Who is your client? How do you know? So if you're a nonprofit, you've got a client that you're providing services to. It could be individuals looking for scholarships, who are going to school, who perhaps have a specific, what is called disability. I call it adaptation to life. And that could be one of your clients. But another one of your clients is the people you raise the funds for. Another one of your clients is the people who coach them in college and then, or in a technical school. And another client could be their caregivers. So you can see that what you're doing, if you're a nonprofit doing those sorts of things, goes to one of 4 different customers of your services. What you're asking for, advice, money, space, and what you're going to do with it, your brief. And that will happen when you present your value prop. They'll be asking you about it. How does your business or product make money? There's a lot of big seeking things out there. People will tell me this market's 7.4 billion and we're going to attempt to get 1%. And I'm going, not in your first 9 to 12 months, you're not. We're going to be lucky if we break even and see ourselves about another 10 to 20%. Not because I don't believe, but a lot of times we're creating a market that does not exist. So that's a little harder. And a true disruptive product takes a little longer to do, but boy, when they hit the market, if they're doing well and done all the things we're talking about, they'd have lots of sales. And then who's your competition? Had somebody say to me the other day about that metrology device, they didn't have any competitors. Nobody was doing the assessments at the speed they were doing them at. Speed's not actually the issue. It's speed, the broad space across the solar panel, and in fact, the accuracy. Speed's only one part of the thing that they're presenting. So what we have to be able to say to ourselves is, how are we unique? How do we do something that nobody else is doing? But we don't want to lose track of our competitors. This is just going crazy on my end. Okay. I apologize for this. Let's go to our next slide. I'm just going to leave them off at the side and hopefully they won't keep on changing. What are your objectives for your customer interview? Okay. The objectives for your customer interview are to create a relationship. The minds of the people that you're talking to right now may not be on their strategy, but they don't know about you. You're going to go research the potential customer. Now, how do you find out about market? We're going to talk about that in a minute. But you do go out there and you do a ton of research and you try to figure out who's doing what to whom. I suspect some of you belong to professional organizations. I know that Dr. Kakich does. I know that I do. I know that Cecilia does. Who are they? They have, and these days they're having virtual conferences. So they're putting up the lists of people who attended their virtual conferences, sometimes with their name, their contact information, and their photograph. That includes workshops that you're in. And also they're publishing their results, their papers, their areas of exploration, and they're putting them on, they used to put them on CDs, now they're putting them online and you buy an entrance ticket to that. That has a ton of information about who attended that particular conference, and from that you can derive who is interested in what you're doing. Are there food associations out there? Yes. Culinary institutes out? Yes. Are there scientific organizations out there? We belong to the APS, American Physical Society. It's for physicists who do particle accelerator technologies. So there are thousands of organizations out there. There is an association under APS that's called Black Physicists, and there's an association under APS that's Hispanic Physicists. So there are also cultural affinities as well. So you have to say to yourself, where can I go to talk to people, to ask them questions about what do they think about what I'm doing? We're going to take a look at something right now that I call a product storyboard. I'd like you to draw 6 segments. I learned this from Dr. Takich. It's all your fault, Stephen. And when you're doing your thinking,
you're welcome.
If you've got these 6 boxes, is you're putting something different in each of the boxes. I happen to be quite a comic book fan, and I've been drawing manga and anime since I was a little kid, but we didn't call it that back then. And reading comic books, you know, the first Hulk magazine, oh, I'm telling you, when I found that thing, we're talking big time wonderful. The first Wonder Woman magazine, oh, it predated me by many, many years, but finding that was like, gotta have this, saved my whole allowance, put it on hold. So what is the problem we think we're solving? Okay, first frame. This is what they do when they build comic books, movies, and books, novels. What does the customer think the problem is? Third frame, this is our product. This is how our product works. Fourth frame, our product does this to alleviate their problem. Fifth frame, who interacts with our product? Now this is interesting. We don't know yet if we're doing something that has to do with manufacturing and it's going to improve what we think is a manufacturing line for a specific business. Who interacts with it? Turns out in the wafer part of the solar industry, there's still people handling wafers once they're embedded, once they've been checked, once they go for use. And all of you, if you don't know too much about wafers, just know that in your cell phone, there's a CDMA wafer in there. It's the same for cell phones throughout the world. That was developed by a company called Qualcomm in San Diego by 2 professors from the University of California, San Diego, who developed the first wafers in their garage. So are they millionaires yet right now? They're billionaires actually. And they have a company called Qualcomm. It was founded by a guy by the name of Irwin Jacobs. Who interacts with the product? He didn't know about smartphones when he came up with this. So the first set of people that he was thinking about was control systems and manufacturing lines. It wasn't until those first smartphones came out, which was quite a bit later than 1992, that people realized what they could do for communications. Now they're in all communications satellites. So who interacts with our product? Is it a human being? Is it a device? Is it a manufacturing line? Who interacts with it? And if it's food, there's a person who sells the food, there's a person who buys the food, there's a person who prepares the food, there's a person who serves the food. And what did they think about the product you're trying to put on the market? What does success look like from the user perspective? What have you helped me do differently and better that I have never been able to do before? That's the unique part. So when you interview customers, you're telling them, this is a problem we think we're solving. What do you think the problem is? This is our products. This is how it works. Our product, we think, alleviates the problem in the following ways. On your end, who would interact with it? What does success look like from your perspective? Would you be willing to use something like this? What would I have to tell you in order for you to want to use it? How much money do you think I can ask for this product or service? What do you think my barriers to success will be? You see why you're doing a product storyboard? You're telling a story of how your product is used so that you can talk to people. So this brings up something that takes that and the value prop, puts them together into something called a 90-second pitch. You know, I used to be a softball player, actually fast pitch. You take the ball and you throw it, right? And yes, in fast pitch, the catcher is throwing it overhand. Head, and that was me. I was kind of like Gina Davis in a league of their own, but I'm not that old. So a 90-second pitch then is something I tell you to get you interested. I don't tell you the whole storyboard. I'm telling you maybe the first 3 blocks on there. I am Susan Cornelius. I work with startup companies. What is my role? It's mentoring them and helping them get to their first round of investment. How do I do that? I'm a mentor at the University of New Mexico for the Innovation Corps, which is a National Science Foundation program. We take them through a 10-week program to get them past the stages we're talking about. So I am telling a potential professor or postdoc or student on campus why it is they might be interested in this particular program. We do it a little bit differently through the community, through the university program, which is who's sponsoring this program today. What we ask you to do is to develop a pitch for your interview. You can go online. It will tell you what a pitch is. How many pitches have I delivered? Probably close to 1,000 for different companies. So what you kind of need to do is put together 90 seconds. You literally time yourself using your cell phone, practice it until you get it down to 90 seconds, because you're going to use it. You're going to say, this is what I'm doing. Would you be willing to have an interview with me? If you call them. If you write them an email, you're going to put it in that. If you use LinkedIn, you're going to put it in that. If you're using Facebook, you're going to be putting it in that. And if you're using mTurk from Amazon and they're helping you do some work, they're going to do it a little differently. We're going to talk about what mTurk is if you've never heard of it. So what to avoid? Asking anybody for a couple of minutes of their time and talking for too long. There are also virtual mentoring events right now. You say to yourself, why would I go to a meeting with 90 people? Well, you'll see their names and maybe you'll have your iPad turned on the side, or your Microsoft book or your Chromebook on the side, and you're going to be looking at people's names to try to figure who they are. And you're going to send them a chat that says, Susan, would you be willing to talk with me for 10 minutes after this program's over with? Because that's what you do at those virtual networking events. There's a handout that we'll put up along with the presentation that has to do with how to do a 90-second pitch. It's a very strict script. It actually works very, very well. Now, if you had somebody sitting next to you, I'd ask you to pitch your partner as if they are your potential customer. I'd like you to practice, even if it's only with your dog or your cat, or the wall, or the mirror. I'd like you to practice your pitch, record yourself, and see how it comes across. Practice it with somebody on Zoom and record it, and then go back and take a look at the recording. We can do all of these things using the current technologies. Why the pitch? You're trying to get them interested in talking to you. The number of times I've seen and listened to somebody giving a pitch at a meeting, and then somebody pops up and says, Cecilia, I would like to talk with you for a while. Do you have a presentation with you that we can go over? And you've got it with you, and you sit down and you talk with them about what you're doing. It's a miracle to watch that happen. And for artists in New Mexico, we have virtual networking between Santa Fe and Albuquerque. For technical people, we have 1 million cups. We have all kinds of programs that are being available right now, and they're virtual, and they don't, if they cost anything to go to, it's an absolute bare minimum, because what we're trying to do is keep our community going. So there's lots of things you can take advantage of right now and do virtual networking. Pitch components. This is pretty clear, I think, right now at this point. Problem you're solving. How does your business make money? Who's your competition? What is your unique value proposition in comparison to your competition? What is the market for your product and potential market share? Now, if I was out in a big program trying to pick up companies to work with, I would tell them, have you ever wondered about what it takes to do a startup? Have you ever wondered how you're going to make money? There's other people who do what I do, but they don't have my track record of 500 successful companies. I'd like to sit down and talk with you. Got a minute? It's that direct. And do people like me talk that directly? Yes, we do. Cecilia will tell you, and Stephen will tell you it's the truth. Oh my gosh. So you kind of can't have to get used to it. So we've talked about the value prop. We've talked about the customer segments. We've talked about your unique. And we said there could be several value props. We've talked about the objectives for your customer interview. Now, here's some things that you do when you write your questions. You do write questions, and you present those questions. You try to take no longer than 30 minutes. You give them time to talk to you. The first thing to understand is you're not selling. Chances are you don't have anything to sell yet, so focus on the problem the customer is trying to solve. Do you have a supplier for candles for your store? Do you have a supplier for beer for your hotel or restaurant? Do you, how do you get those supplied to you from some of the really wonderful IPAs that are available in New Mexico? I'm talking all about real problems that companies are solving right now. How do you deliver gene-based therapies to children? What kind of injection devices are you using? So then you listen and you learn, because that's the main question you're asking. And then you tell them what you're doing and what the features of it are, and are you missing anything? When you're done with each interview, you write down notes, and it's not just notes. Have a system of metrics, columns that you use that you were trying to find out about the following things. What did you find out? And you have one sheet for each company you talk to. Imagine doing this 100 times. What you will find out is once you've done it 100 times, you may do what we call the pivot. And that doesn't mean turning on your foot. That means you thought you were doing this product. Now you find out you're doing this product, okay? So who are your potential customers? Let's talk about how you talk to them, where you find them to begin with. One of the things I mentioned to you is that you all belong, many of you belong to professional organizations. What 3 attributes does the company or the fund development firm that you want to work with, let's say you're doing a nonprofit, what 3 attributes does an organization that you want to talk to become a partner and help you raise funds, what do they like? Like, for instance, I belong to an organization that I belonged to for more than 30 years. It's called MANA. It's a National Latina Women's organization. I became a member in 1990, and here we are at 2020. And it's been a lifelong commitment to the advancement of Latinas. So let's talk about who I would go to. This is pro tip there, but it means profit. What attributes would the people have that I would go to? Well, first of all, I'd want to go to people who are in New Mexico first. Second of all, I would want people who have a reputation for giving and have fund development parts to their organizations. So I'd look up maybe insurance companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield. I would write down how I've seen them and how they behave. They show up at all the virtual events that I go to. They are constantly being sponsors of those organizations. Ooh, maybe they have a program head that I can go to talk about how they do fund development, which in fact they do. So I'm looking for specific behaviors that lead me to believe they'd be interested in me. All right, so if it's metrology, which is the study of the molecules of materials, then I would go and see where do they have national conferences. They have at least 4. And I would go to their proceedings and I would see who was in their vendor lobby. I would also see who it was that was doing presentations and what were the problems they were worried about. Am I going to have to pay a membership to do that? Yeah, I'm going to have to pay a membership to do that. But what you're listening to, what you're hearing me say, is there are associations for food trucks. There are associations for physical therapists. There are associations for art. There are associations for deep science. And there's association for soft science as software is. And you can go to any of them, see who belongs to them, see who's doing what to do, and you call those people. And you're saying, oh, they're competitors, you're not going to want to talk with me. The whole world's not a competitor, okay? The whole world's out there right now in this time helping each other. You couldn't have a more perfect time to call people and talk to them. So write down 3 professional practice behaviors you think you can see being observed in your customer. Now you need names, and that's where you're going to find them. You're going to find them in professional organizations, national conferences, websites, LinkedIn, and Facebook business. That should have said LinkedIn business. If you are not on LinkedIn and Facebook right now, you need to be. And I'm not talking the private side where you get the thing for free. It's going to cost you a little fee per month. I'm talking about Facebook business and LinkedIn business. You need to be out there. What are you selling? You have nothing to sell. You're talking about yourself. The very first thing that most brand new entrepreneurs realize, or entrepreneurs who are trying to reinvent themselves, is that the first thing anybody is going to invest in, support, and help out is you. 90% of all decisions to invest in a company is based on you. So by practicing talking to potential customers, you're learning how to speak to those people that someday you're going to ask to partner with you, be a channel, and perhaps even invest in your company. So now we got to talk about how do you frame the questions. This is a tool that I came up with that I find kind of interesting. It's based on, amongst the many things I've done in my life as a startup, I started up a company within Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, which is a big megabucks investment firm. And they had never let anybody start up a company inside, but 4 of us did. And what were we doing? We were reaching out to our own communities, and we were talking to our own communities and creating a safe place for them to start investing. And that was a very difficult thing because my community did not see themselves in the faces of the people who were out there doing investing. And frankly, the people out there doing investing were putting too much risk together. So we wanted to have this be a community thing, a cultural thing, a fun thing to do where we all learned how to do it. So you go out and you've gotten somebody to say, yes, I'm going to talk to you. The very first thing you do is, thank you for the interview. That's a nice place to start. And you're doing this on Zoom, Google Group, Microsoft Team. Okay, you're using whatever software you're comfortable with. You've set it up. Thank you for taking the interview. What you as a founder are creating. And everybody says, I don't know what my title should be. Should I be CEO and all that kind of stuff? Frankly, as an investor, if I see 3 people in a company, one's a CEO, one's a COO, and one's a director of technology, I really start to get worried. Because one of the things I want to do as an investor is have some say-so over who's the best person to take this thing to market. And that should be the CEO. So I like to see a company where everybody's calling themselves founders. What problem are you solving? And here's the story of what I'm doing. These are its features. You introduce it. You don't get down into the algorithms or the embedded software or the signaling or the DNA molecule you're using and how it interacts, and you're not doing that. You're talking about, this is what it does. Go back to the storyboard that we talked about. This is my product. This is what I think I'm creating. This is what I think its impact is going to be. This is how I think it's going to be used. That's what you're doing. That's the story you're telling. For many of you that are technologists like myself, you know, asking a physicist who works in accelerator technology to do this kind of thing was like, I wanted to just go and give you 60 minutes on this great, crazy little thing I had built. I didn't want to talk about what it had to do with the market anyway. And by the way, what it does have to do with the market, it creates signal and turns devices on and off. And no, it's not radioactive. So here's some ideas to help you frame your questions. You've done that introduction. Now you're asking, I am trying to go to I am working, you don't use the word trying. I'm working to go into the industry and to grow my business. What are your goals being in this business? I've kind of shared mine. What are yours? This is our product. Can you tell me how you might use it? How might it help you grow your business? Those are 2 extremely important questions. You're trying to get at what their pain is and why they would even consider it. What are you using right now? Sometimes they tell you, sometimes they won't, most of the time they will. do you think I've got competitors out there? Nobody knows their own business like somebody who's running their own business. So whether it's a tech product, a med tech problem, a biopharmaceutical, or it's something that is a lifestyle type product, people know their own industry. They will explain it to you. What features do you like? In other words, I've come up with a device that helps people in wheelchairs turn elevators on and off without having to use the lid off their hat to try to punch the button because they can't use their upper body. What features do you like about the signal that it's just a press with your hand on the handle of your wheelchair? What features would you like? Well, if I can't move my fingers, I'd like something to use my eyesight, which was something we found out. How much would you be willing to pay? If I could get through every door in the world, I'd pay $120. That's what we heard too. What markets should I address? Well, why don't you talk to foundations who are working with people, giving them scholarships to get equipment and are raising awareness, because they might really want to be a partner with you on that. And that came up as a surprise. It shouldn't have, but it did, to the people who are working on this at UNM. It did, came up as a surprise. The next part is, we're going to the left now, which is backwards. We're summarizing what we heard from the potential customer or channel. Did I miss anything? Restate your 90-second pitch. You can actually ask them, what do you think of my pitch? Would it get your attention if I was networking? And I'm wondering if you have 2 additional potential customers or channels or partners you think I might want to talk to. That's the hardest part of this whole thing. People go, ask for 2 more people? Ask for 2 more people. And they will most likely do that. Some will say I have to go look at my contact list and get back to you. Others are going to be willing to give it to you right away. Close. Summarize your goals. This is your timeline. May I send you updates? And again, thank you. What questions do you have about this? How to do an interview? None? Zero zilch? Well, maybe you'll talk with me about it on Wednesday of next week.
Susan, I have a question.
Sure.
A quick question. So just, did you say that you should aim for about 30 minutes?
Yes.
Or what? Okay.
Yeah, but aim for about 30 minutes. If you find that you need to go longer, perhaps you're talking too much. You're trying to elicit from them. You got them curious enough to accept the invitation to the interview with you, okay? Now, I'm going to show you another way of doing these interviews at the end of this presentation, which is right here, how to increase the number of interviews. You interested in that, Nancy? Okay. First of all, I've talked with you about LinkedIn business and Facebook business. I would have said to you 2 years ago, gosh, don't use LinkedIn. You really need the energy of that face-to-face so you can see people's faces and so you can gauge what's going on. We're having to do it differently right now. And is it working for us? Yes, it is. There's a variety of research apps out there to figure out how to find the people you need to talk to. One of my favorites is Crunchbase, www.crunchbase.com. And it's mostly technical companies, but the whole theory is you want to look for your area as to whether or not there's something like that. How do you find out who's out there doing what you're doing that you might be able to talk to, and who might be an interested client, an interested partner, an interested channel? Go to your professional organization websites. Well, you know, Eve, I'm sorry to hear that you're getting all of those. You put up a note that says LinkedIn folks are now sending me stuff. I routinely in LinkedIn business, if I get any advertisements, I complain about them. I turn them down. We're not trying to sell one another by cold calling using LinkedIn. We're using LinkedIn to put stuff out there about what we're doing. And we can use it to invite people to have an interview with us. You can send out a message. There's a student in our program. I have people in our program, the guy in our program, that the last time he did a product with our program, he's a graduate student at the university. He sent out more than 100 messages to contacts from various conferences he had gone to for a technical device that had to do with doping of microfiber cables for communications around the world. And it was a brilliant idea. It's still going. And everybody said, oh, it's not going to work. He got 60 yeses. And one of the reasons why he got 60 yeses is he was talking to an affinity group of Iraqi physicists throughout Canada, the United States, and Mexico. and he didn't know that it existed. It was a wonderful start for him because they were in charge of a lot of the big companies that were out there, the big gorillas in his field. Never say no to yourself. You don't know what you're going to find out. MTurk is offered by Amazon, and it gets you help with, thank you, Eve. It gets you help with research. Now, you're going to have to talk with them about what it is you want to do. And maybe you want to talk to 100 people who do the following things, who behave in the following ways, who are in these companies, and they do online AI type searches to find you the people and talk to them, okay? And sometimes if you pay enough, they'll take you to the survey level and do the surveys for you. What's interesting is if you're trying to get a lot of information in a short period of time because somebody's investing in you, MTurk, Amazon has really hit the market with a product that people love using. So is Google Voice. Google Voice costs about $10 a month at their minimum level, and it helps you manage telephone calls. But basically, it transcribes telephone calls. So if you're talking to somebody in a part of the United States that doesn't have great Zoom connectivity, or Microsoft Team or Google connectivity, and you're talking to them and asking them questions, you can say to them, would you do me a favor? I'll give you these questions. Can you call me back? I'm going to be listening to you, but I'm going to be recording it on Google Voice, and then I'll send you a copy of what you told me. A lot of times people will be totally willing to do that, and you can get a clearer link with them. So be looking into be asking what technology can help me out there. I'm still going to want to hear from you that you've done face-to-face using those technologies like Zoom. So use cases, how will your product be used? Now, I've been building a logic with you, and I've been talking about the fact that we start off with the value prop, we go to a pitch, we take a look at the business model canvas, and we're only filling out 4 of the boxes on it right now. And then we are going to write questions. We're going to use technology to talk to people, but I'm also telling you there's something called a use case. I'm a storyteller if you can't guess, okay? Everybody who knows me knows I'm a storyteller. I seem to have a story for everything. But a short 90-second story that shows your approach to using what it is you've come up with is always very interesting, because sometimes we find ourselves rattling off all the technology. We talk about our patent, we talk about what the components of the packet that is and how they work. I mean, if I started talking to you about an ion source, which is an injector of particles that we strip off of gases, we send it through a long tube, we focus at the other end, what comes out as signal, and I gave you all the technical ways that we were doing that. I started showing you drawings, you'd be going, bleh, 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 bleh. Or you might know something about it and you go, that's interesting. But if I told you we could send signals long distance to your satellite in space, correct something that was going on, now would you be interested if you were an engineer for Viasat? I think you would. So the deal is, I got to figure out what are the use cases that are going to get people's attention. So this is for whether you've got special honey-based, bee wax-based candles, or whether or not you are a counselor trying to rebuild your business, advising people, or you've got a device that's going to help people signal elevators for the doors to open up to buildings when they can't do it themselves. I don't care what you're doing. This is an approach you're going to want to do. Develop a story for each one of your customers. Now, remember I said in the case of the metrology device, there was the manufacturers, there was the devices, there's the manufacturers, the roll-to-roll solar panels, and then there's the industry itself. 3 customers that we want to know about what it is we're doing. I'm going to develop a use case for each one of them. So if we use this approach, this is what can be expected. This is what we plan to do. This is our customer. This is how they will use it. This is the training we intend to include because some of this stuff requires it. This is how much it will cost. These are the expected outcomes. And if my grandparents are struggling with their restaurant, again, it's the same thing. The restaurants that we have seen survive over the last 9 months have been using some technology, everything from Facebook to payment systems so that they can have people order online, to different kinds of payment systems once they learned how to do it, and also asking their customers on Facebook, what did you think of that new flan that I made? I used it, I used a different sauce this time on top. I burnt the sugar, but I put something else in it. What did you think? Those are the ones that are surviving. They're doing well. So also part of this story is, this is how our customer will react. This is how we will validate those outcomes. This is what we think our success metric is. Okay, success metrics. That's a whole nother field, and there are people who study that. There's a group called Analytics Ventures in San Diego that's run by a friend of mine who's a VC. And that particular company takes a look at every deep technology company that comes to them and figures out how will you know when you're going to be successful. Most people come up with money. It's not that. In your first year, are people saying, wow? Are they saying, I would do this again? Are they saying, I'm going to tell other people about it? Are they saying, this is how its use made a difference in my life? And nobody knows better than a counselor when you're working with people, either as a mentor like I'm doing, or you're working with people in a psychological healthcare setting, that's what you want to hear. Don't you want to hear that about your tech product, your restaurant, anything else you're doing? That people are saying, wow. Now, I'd like you to create a use case. If you're going to meet with me on Wednesday of next week, you don't have to have all of this ready. Don't worry about it. We'll work on some of it because it's an opportunity for me to give you some feedback. Share your use case with somebody else. Grandparents are always a good place to start. I'm not being flippant when I say that. I told you about my grandson starting with me and asking me what I think, because he had to submit this paper to Texas State University in engineering and math, where he is. And engineering and math, and he's going to start up a truck that serves food. It's because that's where his passion is, and that's what he's discovered after 4 years. Maybe he'll end up teaching, but he'll also have a truck. So share it with somebody else. Ask them for feedback. If you are not out there talking to people there, I can guarantee you there are competitors who are, and they're going to go, oh, I just talked to Cecilia Pacheco. She's doing the same thing. How are you different and how are you unique for her? But because you've listened to me, you can tell them, okay? And because you've been doing research, you can tell them. Customer interview questions. When we're done with class, will you promise me you will take at least 5 minutes to start writing down some interview questions? Will all of you do that, please? Yes? Please? You're going to do it. Start writing some questions about, Stephen, you're going to start writing questions. You're going to ask people about your grandpa's printing business, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's something I've done for many projects throughout the UNM educational system.
Yes.
It always came up. I said, hey, I've got a family business, and the group was always like, let's do that. So I've done lots in the past. And now we do it again professionally.
Well, you know what? Dr. Tkach teaches these classes for UNM students, and he has an incredible population of young students who are working with him, all very excited about doing this in this environment. So I'm asking you to get there too with me. I hope I'm pouring some enthusiasm into you. And you know, Eva's telling me she's going to target physician offices and she's going to write up all her stuff. Bring it with you. You can tell me about it. Or if you're like me and you don't like to write anymore, you just type it up and it's all notes and we can go over it and we can put it up on Zoom, okay? Slow today. Brainstorm your use cases. This gives you another idea of a hypothesis. If we use this approach to the treatment of Alzheimer's, this is what can be expected. This is what we plan to do. This is our customer. This is how, and how will they use it? This is the training we will include. This is how much it will cost. These are the expected outcomes. This is our client. This is who's going to react. This is how we will validate those outcomes. This is what we think will be our success metric. So if you just use that framework for writing your use case, you'll come up with something. By the way, this is a real company. It's called Anti-Tau. They are coming up with an injection that they believe will be able to give to young people over 13 at some point in their lives, and we will get rid of Alzheimer's forever. So far, in working with laboratory rats, and I know some people have feelings about that, but so far it's working. Unbelievable. They're 2 graduate students at UNM. It's best to avoid the following, and we're at the end of our hour. Most of this stuff, when Cecilia puts it up, launches it, you can see it. I had one of my mentees who's a postdoc at UNM do this the other day. Don't talk about your breakthrough being disruptive technology that nobody else is doing. Remember, the interview is about them. And there's anybody on the face of this earth that doesn't like being listened to for about 15 minutes. If you have an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, if you've got a patent on what you're doing, it's already public information. So you can talk about it and you can deal with it later. But if it's a new model for your business and you have pizza, let's say, or you have a new skin cream, or you have a new personal service and you don't want to tell people, you're going to have a hard time doing these interviews. So, but you need them. You need to start. You know, you want people to say, I met this great Nancy Lewis the other day. My God, I can't believe what she's doing. You have got to talk to her. So how are you going to do that? Tell them about it. And then please avoid surveys if you can. We've had some success with sending out 400 surveys and getting 400 responses. And we've used mTurk and we've used Google Voice. You use all of them depending on your time frame you got for asking these questions. But you've got to have some face-to-face out there, and it helps you learn how to talk to people about what you're doing, because don't forget, the first investors are investing in you, and your first investors may be your clients who say yes to your service. How about that? Death by PowerPoint. What I always tell people is, if you're networking and somebody says, tell me more about it, you give them 5 minutes, because you've got this 5-minute pitch in which you can talk about it and they can ask you questions. You don't start showing them slides until you set up a separate meeting. And that's very true for high-tech companies. You're trying to get them to talk about themselves and what was it you said that got them interested, okay? Don't demo your device. I've been told by a lot of people, oh, we've done at least 15. We had 15 people come into the lab and we looked at the device together. That's more or less the same as above. You need to be convincing whoever you invite into your lab that they want to be a customer. And that's the first thing you do before you show them the technology. Death by blindness. Nobody else is doing what I'm doing. We are unique. I don't care what you say. We're faster, we're cheaper, that we're this, we're that. You don't know until you've tried to use it in their environment, because you don't know what their problems and their pain is. And then the interviews, you've got to be honest with yourself when you're done. If they say, I don't see myself using what you've got, write that down. They do not see them using what I've got. Ask them why. Why aren't they willing to donate to you? Ask them why. Or what? What are the reasons that are preventing you? Okay. And we're almost done. These are the questions. You'll see it in the presentation that I just gave you about how you can evaluate your interviews. What are they saying? What opportunities did I discover? Who should I be talking to is one of those. Were any of my assumptions wrong? Did I get any insights? Were my hypotheses about why people need what I'm coming up with there? And did I find out there's another route to the problem I'm solving? What we've discovered with wheelchairs is everybody wants to go faster and over terrains, but if you can't use your upper body, now what do you do? So we're coming up with robotic arms for that. Challenge your assumptions. This slide merely takes a look at the fact you are on two parallel paths, guys. On one side, you're talking to customers, and on the other side, you're developing your product to get it to market, and you aren't doing it at the same time. This is not a linear process where first I do this, and then I do this. You're going to do the things that I've asked you to do to get yourself ready to talk to customers, to find out if they use it at the same time you're working in the technology. And I'm going to jump ahead and we're done. The last thing on here is a group of books. I love these books. What can I say? I don't think you have to read them to be successful, but what I wanted to point out to you was The Lean Entrepreneur, which I think is a little complicated to read, has to do with talking to customers. I've kind of distilled it today. I like The Art of the Start 2.0 because it's all about you and your attitudes. It's written by Guy Kawasaki, founder number 4 of Apple, a mentor of mine in the past. Business Model Generation, that format I showed you, they explain it here, but they also have it online. But here's the one I really want you to know, the Business Model Navigator. The guys who wrote the Business Model Navigator tell you why you'd be an LLC, why you'd be a foundation, why you'd want to have a product to sell as a foundation, how it is you raise funds, what are you going to do with the funds. If you're going to do those things, this is your business model. Really a helpful tool, and it's under, you go to their website and then you look for the part of the website that's called Patterns. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you for your comments while we were We're working together. I hope I see some of you next Wednesday for 30 minutes to chat. Bring your stuff with you. We'll have fun.